I'm coming to you from New York City, and Steve Shadders is in the London area. I'm here in New York in advance of the CoinGeek Live conference, which will be happening next week. It's just under a week to CoinGeek Live, September 30th, October 1st and 2nd. Steve, are you excited for it?
I'm thrilled.
That is Steve's thrilled pose. And I love your Satoshi Dragon sweatshirt. Steve, are you feeling extra dragon fierce today?
I'm feeling very dragony. I'm not far from Slovenia, where the other version of the dragon is, and I'm looking forward to getting back there soon.
Yeah, for those of you who've never been to Ljubljana, they love their dragons. There's lots of dragon statues all across the city. In any event, I want to welcome you to the second of our virtual meetups focused on regional time zones. This one welcoming people in the Americas and anywhere else around the world if you're happening to be up early or up late to watch our latest update on what's going on for CoinGeek Live, some things in the BSV world, and our focus on some of the top entries in our third Bitcoin SV Hackathon that didn't quite make the finals, but were really excellent enough. We wanted to acknowledge them and give them an opportunity to expose their project to the Bitcoin SV ecosystem. So before we get to those particular projects, I'm going to give you a quick preview of what's going on at CoinGeek Live. There's some of us here already working really hard to get ready for an exciting virtual event. Last time at our last virtual meetup, I talked about some of the things happening on the first day. The second day of the conference will be a very long day. We're starting very early in Eastern time zone. This is on Thursday, October 1st, because we wanted to provide an Asia Pacific time block for our friends out in Asia Pacific to have a couple hours of content that they could watch at least at a decent time in the evening for them. So we're starting at 7 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday, October 1st, with a session from our friends in Australia that is going to focus on the Internet of Things and big data that can be done on the Bitcoin SV blockchain. You'll hear about some developments with MetaStream, as well as Brendan Lee's Elis Digital, and Predict Ecology, a project that's going to be using the MetaStream high throughput wallet. Then we're going to get an update on the Maxton browser, the first Bitcoin SV powered browser, and NB domain system for BSV from Jeff Chen, the CEO of Maxton. Then there's a lot of T's that day, in addition to IoT, because we're going to have a lot of sessions about tokens. Tokenize from James Belding will present what's been going on with them. I know a lot of you have been asking what's been going on with Tokenize. He's going to unveil all the progress they've made and lead into a very full and power-packed panel about the different options for token solutions on Bitcoin SV. You'll hear from James Belding again, as well as representatives from Tall, nChain, the Beijing Group, and two of the token issuers that have already created tokens on the Bitcoin SV ecosystems, which are behind the scenes, Unisat with its token, and a new company to most of you, Transmira, with an AR/VR platform called Omniscape, which will be using and demonstrating Bitcoin SV tokens during the conference. You can catch Shadders on that conference as well, or that panel as well. We'll also have an internet panel, which will talk about how BSV can help reinvent the internet with a triple set of T's, True Reviews, Tonic Pow, and Twetch, all on one session to talk about their products and the whole emergence of a new business model to allow users and creators to earn from their content and create more honesty on the internet. And then Tall and transaction processing will be featured with Jerry Chan, as well as a speech from Jackson Lasky about something they're doing at Unbounded Capital to really help support transaction processing in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem. There'll be some other sessions, but we'll end that day with a fireside chat that I'll have with Dr. Craig Wright about another T, time, something very important in the Bitcoin white paper, as well as Dr. Craig's real understanding of what he wants us to see with Bitcoin. Because if you go back and read the Bitcoin white paper, it doesn't use the term blockchain, does it, Steve? No blockchain. No.
It doesn't. It doesn't use a lot of the terms that are commonly used in modern blockchain parlance, I suppose.
Yeah. Yes, blockchain came later. In fact, blockchain wasn't even the first term. So the Bitcoin white paper uses the phrase distributed timestamp server, right? So it discussed the system that we use to power Bitcoin as a timestamp server. And then one of the first other references to what became the blockchain was a time chain. So I wanted to use this conference to have a conversation with Craig for the rest of you to hear about something he discusses with me, and I know Shadders, a lot behind the scenes, which is the importance of Bitcoin's timestamping, a chronology of events, a chronology of transactions in history, and why that is important to its full potential. Are you excited to hear about that, Steve? I know you've heard about it from Craig.
I am, because, well, I mean, it hasn't quite happened yet, but we have a hard fork coming up at some unknown time in the future, which I named Chronicle. After precisely this property, which is the ordered record of events, which is what my personal take on what Bitcoin is all about, and I guess a lot of that terminology was very much influenced by Craig talking about Bitcoin in terms of the timestamping capability.
Yes, and so, for the last year and a half, we've talked a lot about returning Bitcoin's original protocol to Genesis. We've talked a lot about the scaling work that's being done by the Bitcoin SV node team to scale to much higher transaction volume and data capacity. But now it's time to begin talking about time and its importance to the full capabilities of Bitcoin, especially as an honest ledger system for the world. So look out for that. And of course, we'll have some exciting more sessions on day 3, some great business announcements coming across the 3 days of the conference. So if you have not registered yet, please join us by registering for free at CoinGeekConference.com, CoinGeekConference.com. Of course, one of the key aspects of every recent CoinGeek conference, or at least most of them, has been the Hackathon Finals. And so on the first day, you'll see the 3 finalists of our 3rd Bitcoin SV Hackathon. But this virtual meetup is going to focus on 2 of the other projects that were excellent, and we want to showcase them for the Bitcoin SV world. So Steve, before we introduce these 2 projects who are going to speak today, and this is where the D's come in, because the project creators are both named Dave or David, so this is the day of T's and D's. Why don't you tell us about your general impressions about the hackathon in general? I'm glad I can make Shadders laugh even after all this time.
I do make you try hard sometimes, especially this late at night. Look, judging hackathons is hard, and I'm actually really pleased about the fact that the more hackathons we do, the harder they get to judge, because that generally means that we've got a lot of really high quality entries that we need to take into account, and putting one above the other, there's always an element of subjectivity to it, and it just is hard, because I see so much merit there that I only have a limited ability to kind of reward it by giving my recommendation to putting something into the finals list, but I'd love to be able to spread it around further, and I'm really glad that we've actually got this opportunity to give some of the other entrants to the hackathon some due credit, because an incredible amount of work has gone into a lot of this. So I mean, we do these hackathons, BA does these hackathons because of their core interest in building the developer community, and this is something that I've actually had quite a lot to say about on social media and various other places in the last few weeks. That developer community is core to the Bitcoin economy, in the same way that masons and architects were core to the industries that built civilization a few hundred years ago. Construction being one of the primary ones. And so, developers are the foundation of the new economy, the Bitcoin economy. We have a very, very strong interest in building that. So the theme for this hackathon, I think, is something that goes to the heart of what Bitcoin is about, which is connecting the world to one global blockchain. The chronicle of Bitcoin, that ordered record of events, the point of it is that I guess any record of history, to have real credibility, needs to be the single and canonical record of history. And in the past, of course, historical records are always subject to debate. But Bitcoin is kind of different in that sense because it records history in the form of statements as well as in the form of cryptographic and mathematical statements that can't be argued with. You can argue with a statement that someone has made, but you can't argue with the fact that the statement itself has been made. I think that someone on the channel who's not quite muted. So we asked the entrants in this hackathon to kind of leverage this this capability as a core element of this project, and we've got a couple of entries here tonight that that were very close to making it into the final three, but not quite. But both of them have addressed this particular need in very different ways, and you'll see a very different flavor in these two particular entries. One of them, I think you'll see straight up. You'll see very obviously the application to bringing users on board, and it's one of those projects that's kind of got it's immediately a bit sexy if you're going to put it in front of a board of VC investors. The other is very utilitarian, and being an engineer like I am, that appeals to me probably a lot more than it does to less technical people. But it's also a very impressive effort, I think, in terms of packaging up a piece of work, a set of products in a way that actually makes them very usable, not to an end user, not to someone who's going to download an app from a Google Play Store or from Apple's App Store or whatever and start playing with it straight away, but to an engineer that is trying to solve a problem for a really big company in the back end. So yeah, you'll see these two different flavors, and keep an open mind about them both. I think these two entrants definitely have a big future in Bitcoin SV. And
so for our audience out there, I see more people joining in, and Dave, Mark Robeson says, go Dave. You'll have the opportunity, there's both a chat function on our conference or video conference platform where you can just chat and send great comments in there like, hey there, Shahui, or go Dave. Hello, all people out there. So you can chat away. There's also a question and answer function. So if it's just been enabled, so you see that Q&A mode has been enabled, folks. Q&A mode has been enabled. If you want to ask a question for our speakers, then click on the question mark little round icon at the bottom. It will move you from public chat to Q&A mode, and it makes it easier for us to identify the questions to ask to the speakers at the end of the speech. So after Dave Foderick here is done presenting, we'll take questions for him and Steve about his project and then move on to the next one. Steve, anything else to add before we get Dave going?
Yeah, just a quick intro for Dave. So Dave's going to be presenting the MoneyStream project, and I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but this is a really interesting take on the concept of monetizing content. We've seen a lot of different examples of this in Bitcoin SV so far. This one I think is incredibly unique because it takes it from monetizing on a single platform to monetizing across the internet. And I've got a couple of questions that I'm going to ask about how to address certain questions about that after the presentation. But I'm really interested to hear Dave's take on this. So let's hear about MoneyStream.
Yeah, so from Lake Tahoe, presenting MoneyStream, Dave Foderick.
1 minute, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to go into full screen mode. Okay, can you see my screen now? I can't hear anything, but I assume.
We can see your screen, Dave, but it doesn't
Okay.
have your presentation up. Oh, yes, it does. It says, what kind of user are
Yeah.
you? Here we go. Perfect.
Yes.
All right, go
Full screen.
Dave.
Okay, thank you. So fundamentally, MoneyStream is a new way to browse the internet and pay for things using your Bitcoin wallet. So I have MoneyStream. It installs as an extension. I have it installed up here on the top right of my screen. It's a little bit slow with full screen mode, but you can see eventually. I have a wallet installed in my browser, and I can top it up with Money button if I want to add some balance. Well, eventually it's going to pop up. And wow, this is really slow, but okay. I should be you'll be able to top off your Money button just by swiping with Money button. And let me move this out of the way. Click OK. So now we have 46,000 Satoshis. So we can use that to browse the internet. And the way we browse for content is, let me go into, again, move this out of the way. Since it is an extension, I'm going to open up some debug information so we can all kind of get a look at what's going on behind the scenes. So behind the scenes, I'm going to clear this console, but it's going to show us what's happening inside this extension as we go to websites. And for example, I've monetized Powping. So MoneyStream can pay any content provider on the internet as long as it can find a Money button address to pay to. So let's see how good this works. We're browsing content on the internet, and behind the scenes, it's going to be creating transactions in small increments and sending them to the websites. So it's opening a channel from the user's browser to the website. And eventually, I might have to shut this off because it is running very, very slow. Eventually, it's going to show as monetizing up here in the extension. I can see it working and trying to do its thing. But okay, so now we're generating some transactions. I have it set to, I think, 200 Satoshis every 5 seconds, or 40 Satoshis a second. And eventually, up here on the top right, it's going to show monetized. So at this point, we have viewed content, and we are sending Bitcoin from our wallet to the content creator on this page. And we can tell by this little green mark that we are in fact monetizing. And it will continue to monetize until we stop the screen, which can be anything that takes our attention away from this content stream. So if we click off of that page and go to another page that's not monetized, then the payment stream stops, and we're going to create a transaction on the blockchain. Okay, so inside the extension, you have the wallet balance has now gone down. It was 46,000, now it's 44,000. On the settings page, it's going to have some controls for you to decide on how you want to pay out. So there's a frugal mode, and then you can specify the maximum that you want to spend in a session. So that's another way for you to control what's going on in your payment stream. Also, there's an interesting concept of a history. So you can own your own data, which in this case means you can own your own browser session. These are a couple of things that I've been working on since the hackathon. So a few of these features are new. Okay, so I have also been working on an onboarding tool. So users will be able to go on to a website. They will be able to install an extension if you're using Chrome. And I've been able to reverse the MoneyStream. So when you first install MoneyStream, you'll have a 0 balance in your wallet. So as an onboarding tool, you can go in here and you can earn some Satoshis by watching a promo video for MoneyStream. And you'll see up here, it'll have the status of of how you're getting paid. So you'll see it start counting up transaction by transaction. And as soon as it says monetizing, that is a monetized session and you will get paid. So I'm not going to play the whole thing. You'll be able to go to bitcoinofthings.com, get started, and onboard people to BSV. So we see we did get paid something. Again, I have to move things across my screen. But we got some Satoshis. We can go to what's on chain and see that we have an unconfirmed transaction with a payout to us. Yay. Okay, so that's how you can spend using MoneyStream. You can also earn by watching advertisements, as we saw, but you can also go to you can also, if you have a web page, you can monetize your own website very easily. So go to the About page of MoneyStream. There you go. And there's user information and there is developer information. I just want to show you in the dev guide that it's as simple as adding a monetization tag on your website and giving your pay mail address. And other visitors who have MoneyStream can visit your site, know your pay mail address, and they will simply start paying you. So it can be that easy to start monetizing with MoneyStream. For a fully robust site, you will probably want to verify that they still have a monetized stream going on while you're delivering content. So we want to make it safe for you to deliver streaming content from your website. So there will be validation and other methods for you to guarantee payment. But the point is that MoneyStream is a service provider, so it handles all the interface with the blockchain for you. So you really just need to tell MoneyStream how you want to get paid. Okay. And then remember how there was a history in MoneyStream? So I've integrated MoneyStream with Unwriter's TXT tool. So when you have history on, it will actually hash the metadata about your browser sessions and store that in TXT. So I'm just going to refresh here. This is what TXT looks like. A minute ago, I made a transaction on actually, oh, I did one for MoneyStream, and then before that, I did POW Ping. So they're both here. So when you browse the internet, this content is not yours normally. That's content that you view from other people. But what is yours is the wallet up here in the menu that you control. And also what is yours is the history of the websites that you went to. So when you write the transactions to the blockchain, you own that content, you own that history. So what can you do with it? These sessions can be proof that you purchased content. For example, if you want to leave a review that you viewed, for example, a movie, and you want to leave a review, you can tie that purchase to the review through your online history on the blockchain, and those two events will be tied together. The other thing you could do, oh, I didn't talk about subscriptions, but MoneyStream is also an alternative to the subscription model. So you won't get advertisements since you're paying for monetized sessions, and you won't have to pay subscriptions if you don't want to. The website could have a policy that says, okay, we don't know who you are, but we have premium content. It's $5 to watch a movie. Oh, but if you have purchased content in the past, then we can give you a discount. So you can present proof that you purchased from that vendor in the past, and you can get the benefits of a subscription without giving up your credit card and just use Bitcoin. So I guess that's my fundamental message, is that this is a way to browse the internet, just use Bitcoin, earn Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin, and create monetized websites. So if you want to, if you have ideas for a monetized platform and you want to monetize it easily, get into contact with me. And I think with that, I will open it up and send it back to Steve, and we can take some questions.
Thanks, Dave. This is fantastic. We've got a few questions here. Before I get to them, though, I'm going to be a little bit greedy and take the floor myself, because I've got a couple myself. What I see here is an incredible set of seeds of ideas. I don't think that this is a fully formed and integrated business model just yet, but you've got some fantastic concepts that need to be built out a little more. What you've definitely done here is you've taken the concept of data ownership and you've addressed it in numerous different ways, which I've not seen people do before. Spreading the ability to monetize across the entire internet by doing it via a browser plugin, of course, is the thing that first caught my eye. There's a number of other things caught my eye as well. but I'm going to just start with the first question that I had when I actually originally judged this this entry, which was you seem to have a mechanism for being able to allow people to pay for content as they're using it. But what I haven't seen is how the content owners can block, as in, put a paywall in place too. So, for example, you want someone to be able to watch your YouTube video. How would you stop them from being able to watch it until they pay? Have you thought through that problem?
Yes. So I didn't mention, but MoneyStream follows the W3C web monetization proposed standard. There are examples of that. So as you are paying, there are events that are fired in your browser. So you have a monetization progress event, and inside the progress event, they can say how much have they paid so far in this session. If it's not enough, I'm not going to show the premium content. So the web page, by handling these events, has an opportunity to customize the monetization experience.
Yep.
So there's a monetization start and a monetization progress. And you're correct that I have not shown those off, and my examples are very weak, but those events do exist. So one of the things would be to provide better examples.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I'm actually just wanted to figure out if you've been thinking along those lines. So, I mean, if you have, then that's great. I suspect that implementing the solutions to some of those problems is much more than you can do in the course of a hackathon. So, I'm unsurprised that you wouldn't have that as a complete solution at this stage, but I'm certainly glad to see that you're thinking that along those lines. Something else that I have actually not thought about until I saw the way that you presented this tonight was the concept of getting paid as a MoneyStream user for watching advertising, etc. And there's another element to that you brought in, which is recording your commercial history, I suppose, on the internet, of using MoneyStream to demonstrate your interest in various areas of commerce. That's got to be fascinating information for an advertiser, and we know that people pay $2, sometimes even $50 for a single impression on a Facebook ad to put in front of a user. How have you thought about using that?
Yeah, so there's this concept of data unions where users could submit that information privately and anonymously, and people could purchase that browser history on a data exchange. So that is another way to earn a lifetime royalty, because you don't really sell that history, you license it. So you could license it to Microsoft, license it to Google, the same information, license it over and over, earn a lifetime of royalties from owning your information, your browser history. So yes, that's a very important point. And the reason why you haven't seen this is because some of this stuff that I'm showing is post hackathon. So it was never part of the submission.
No, that's okay. Well, I mean, I love nothing more than a hackathon submission that continues to get developed afterwards. So I've got a couple of questions here from the audience. This first one, I spotted this one before. I'm going to give a quick answer to it myself before I turn it over to you. But so question number one: since MoneyStream is doing a transaction every 5 seconds, how does MoneyStream handle UTXO splitting? I'm just going to give you an easy out here, David, and say that by the end of this year, that's not going to be a problem you're going to have to deal with. So that is a valid answer to the question, but I'll give you a shot if you want.
Yeah, so UTXO management is difficult, and so MoneyStream can extend a session by adding additional UTXOs. But if in the future, I could foresee wanting to have several streams open at the same time. So you would have to split the outputs and then consume those UTXOs in different streams at the same time. So basically, there's a lot of UTXO management going on, and it's not all debugged. So there's still work to do on that.
Okay. And so second question from the same asker, who's I can't see their name, but so how is the forward paying method more efficient than the request payment method as seen with Invisible Money Button? Oh, sorry, it comes from Robin. Yeah.
Excellent question. How is MoneyStream different than Money Button? So Money Button is for discrete, what we call discrete payments. So Money Button is excellent when you know upfront how to calculate exactly how much to pay, and you can show a UI and they can authorize the payment just by swiping. MoneyStream can be used for many browser sessions where you don't know upfront how much you will be paying, so you need to pay that in small increments. If I will work with any wallet that wants to implement streaming, so I've been in contact with some now. I will work with anyone who wants to do streaming.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think this is a fascinating concept because it's actually not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of business model potential, I think, in the users actually, paying for content in this way, especially if you can get the paywall part in place, so that the owners can kind of set terms and negotiate with the users. But in terms of the users actually being able to generate a provable record of their own behavior, because that data is incredibly valuable.
Right now, I'm doing a fixed rate over a variable duration. But yes, for the payment request, it will eventually be a negotiable rate over a variable duration, and then it will handle a lot more scenarios.
Sure. Okay. So I think we're going to move on to our next presenter shortly. I think we've got maybe time for one more question, but anyone watching, David Foderick is his name. I'll ask him for a Twitter handle or some other way of getting into contact in a moment. But if you're interested in working with David, please do reach out to him or via Bitcoin Association. David, have you got a Twitter handle or contact details for anyone that might want to work with you?
Sure. You can use either D Fodrick, like my name, or MoneyStream Cash is the Twitter handle.
Hey, Steve, before we let this Dave go, I did have one personal question myself. So, Dave, what are your plans now for this project and whether to turn it into a commercial venture or not? Do you have a kind of roadmap in mind? And obviously, it's probably subject to all kinds of change, but I'm just curious,
Right.
What are your plans are?
Right. So it's an alpha now. There are a lot of things centered around privacy for the user that has to be taken into consideration to move it into beta. But yeah, so the plan is to bring people on board, work with platforms that want to monetize, because I think I can give them an advantage to be able to monetize their platforms quickly and efficiently. So my difficulty is I have to convince users to start paying for things that they may be getting for free now. and to talk to platforms.
What kind of platforms are your ideal partners?
It can be really anything. It's web monetization. It's for any time-based, session-based monetization of web content. So it could be web games, movie and video site, social media, really anything. And I don't plan on creating the platforms myself, just helping with the tools for other people to create the platforms.
So hear that, BSV world. If you've got a platform or know of platforms that could use this service, get them in touch with Dave. I'll give you one piece of advice that I often give to entrepreneurs when they're starting projects early, which is even if your service can be used for any type of platform, in the early stages of growing a project and business, pick a few verticals, different types of platforms that you think would drive the earliest adoption from a platform space, as well as individual users, because you can't tackle it all at once. Or pick a few to target, and others will come anyway, more naturally. But that's always a good strategy. It helps to hone your time and resources too, and word of mouth.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, thanks. Big round of applause for MoneyStream. All right,
thanks David. Yeah, I was really glad that we had a chance to get your entry out there. So moving on now from one David to another. Our second showcase tonight is a project called Greenlight, and as I said, another David Lipka. David is very well known in the Discord channels of the hackathon. I think almost everyone from nChain who was part of support knows who David is, because he asked us quite a few questions, some pretty pertinent ones. Some of them were a bit tricky for us to answer, and we had to go back and have a few internal discussions before we could give him the right answers. But we welcome questions. And David did something that I find particularly interesting as an engineer. He took a product that is hard to use, and he basically tried to make a way to make it easier to use, not for an end user, but for I guess an integrator. And this is something that happens, I guess, in the back end of business a lot, and you don't see it. You won't see the fruits of this on social media or on any of the usual kind of public platforms, but this is the kind of thing that actually underpins the TikToks of the world and all of the various other industries and whatever that we all make use of in daily life. It's a piece of plumbing, but it's a really interesting approach, and I'll have a few questions for David afterwards. Please do throw your questions in the chat while he's talking. But let's hear a little bit more about Greenlight now. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Steve. I hope I'm sharing my screen. Do you see me? I have some slides. I'm going to put up the first slide. So is everybody seeing my slides?
We don't see this just yet.
Maybe there's some time lag. I thought I clicked the button.
No, we're still not seeing them.
Screen sharing. I clicked on the blue screen sharing word here. Maybe I have to click on here. Anybody know how to do the screen sharing?
We've got Martin figuring out on the left at the moment. So there's a button on the left-hand side.
Yes.
Looks like two monitors. Yeah.
Yes. I've been clicking it.
Okay,
Might be disabled. Maybe disabled.
No, I can see a screen that says BSV Virtual Meetup.
maybe the wrong screen. Oh. Oh, I see, there's that one. Okay, that's that one. That's showing my web page. Okay, that's showing the web page, not my desktop.
Cool.
Let's see if I shrink that. You see it now? Is that better?
No, we're seeing the BSV Virtual Meetup screen right now.
So it's showing my web browser. I need it to show my desktop.
Just hold on a second. I think Martin's doing something in the background.
Okay.
Jimmy, you're muted.
Hi, David. While you're sorting that out, I wanted to say hi.
Hi, from the other side of the city. Yes.
I know, we're both in Manhattan, but just on different sides of the city right now. The fun chat people from Bitcoin Association will tell me when you're ready to go again. So tell me what your experience was like competing in the hackathon.
Well, it gave me, I was a man with a mission, serious missions. I mean, you know, I was in that thing for like, what is it? Almost, 2-3 months,
Yeah,
every day.
weeks. Wow.
Every day. I have a day job, so I mean, after work, I had to just put my head down and do it every day. So it was a discipline operation. Now, I already took my master's degree for 2 years from Nicosia, cryptocurrency, and that was the same thing. So I was actually going back into master's degree mode in some ways, just every day after work. But and it was a lot of scary parts. Wasn't sure if I could get it working, things like that.
Well, we're glad you did. So I'm being told you need to log back out and then log back in and try it again. And then I'll have Steve come back on to help us entertain our audience while you log back out and log back in, David.
Now, logging out is what? Just Xing on the upper right, X the whole thing out?
Correct. You can exit out.
So goodbye. I got to find my link.
So while we're waiting for David to get back in, Steve, you want to regale us with any excitement that we can expect from the Bitcoin SV node team over the coming weeks? I know you don't want to spoil everything, but some things will be coming over the rest of the year, right? Just things.
This is the part where you try to get announcements out of me before I'm ready to make them.
Yeah.
Look, we're going to be focusing on a couple of things on the SV infrastructure side over the rest of the year. One is completing the IP to IP user interaction experience with Bitcoin, which Satoshi implemented initially in version 0.1 or 0.0.1 of Bitcoin. But a lot of the kind of required technologies to make that a good user experience simply didn't exist at the time. They do now. In fact, we're using one of them right this minute, or we're using the principle, the fact that you and I are able to talk to each other without establishing a direct connection to each other is by virtue of the fact that we are bouncing off a server out on the internet. And we will be illustrating a principle very similar to that at CoinGeek to solve one of the fundamental problems of user-to-user interactions on Bitcoin.
Well, I'm on pins and needles, ready to hear about that. So we've got David back. David, you want to try sharing your screen again and see if we can get you up and operating?
Yeah, it says open in browser or run an app to share the screen. Because I'm going to do my desktop. The desktop.
Open in browser, I think, is the easiest option.
Okay, entire screen. Okay, got that. Okay, share. All right. Entire screen share.
Yay, it's sharing. It's coming, it's loading up a little bit low, but as it's loading up, we're going to give the green light to David Lipka for green light. Take it away, David.
Thank you. And it's a good use of the term green light because that really is what I'm ultimately trying to promote is the green light to go forth and develop on the Greenlight platform, which is on tokenized, to make your $1 billion. You know, it's really, I think it's the killer app. It's the suite of killer apps. It will enable all the killer apps and all the thousands of transactions per second that we've been looking for in BSV. I really do. So, okay, without further ado, let me go to my next slide. So I'm Dave Lipka, and I have a master's degree from University of Nicosia in cryptocurrency. I took the technical track, which was the programming track, and so I consider myself a hardcore developer. Over 30 years of experience. I've been in both startups and corporate projects. I'm a Canadian citizen, graduated from U of T with a comp sci degree. And then I worked many years in Toronto as a full-time developer. And but finally, I just got hungry for the USA, bigger market. So I moved there in 1995 and started working. So during my MSc around 2018 timeframe, it was a 2-year course. I was briefed about BSV as part of studying the BTC forks, you know, BCH and BSV. So that's where I heard about it first, and in school. And you know, I researched Dr. Wright right off the bat, and right off, you know, I just immediately thought, yeah, he's obviously Satoshi. I mean, it's as clear as a bell. And especially when I read that paper on n-sequence that he wrote, I think it was in 2018, he raised those issues again about n-sequence and BTC, it turned it off or disabled it kind of thing. So, and I mentioned how great it was to my classmates, and they flamed me out of my, you know, they flamed me on the forum, the class forum, you know, super anti-BSV classmates. But I got them back, I held my own. So anyway, so then not too much after, you know, I from BSV, I heard about tokenized, which I thought was kind of like their premier, almost their premier application at the time. And I loved it, and because it was fintech, and I'm a longtime CNBC fan for what it's worth, and I love financial tech. So, so I decided to look into it, and then I finally, I took a while, but I got a job near Manhattan's because I wanted to kind of pursue it in the Manhattan environment, business environment. So, so I had almost the same idea that CoinGeek has, I think, to kind of have a presence in Manhattan, except I got a permanent presence. Okay, next one. So, right now I'm an enterprise application software engineer for a major consulting firm. I did pitch tokenized to some corporate managers and some startup investors, and I got quite successful. I was close to getting some traction and getting the green light to do some prototypes, but then the virus came along and stopped everything. So I even closed down the office I was working out of. So all that's on hold. So, but I did join an incubator software in New York. And so I worked at the incubator every night after work. I went there for peace and quiet and worked on tokenized. And so tokenized, the thing was that, you know, Brendan Lee had been kind enough to write a tutorial on how to kind of use it, because there wasn't even much other than the forums to figure out how to use it. Tokenized is really aimed at large companies with lots of money. You know, it's not really aimed at private developers experimenting. But the thing is, you need the private developers to learn how to use it to be the, you know, the fuel to make it grow, even if a big company does buy it, right? So I thought, you know, I want to use it, and the tutorial steps were rather high-level steps, and it actually wasn't enough to actually get it working. You had to, there was additional sub-steps had to be researched, and I researched those on a forum for over a year. So finally, I decided to, you know, automate it, because I was doing all these steps by hand, and it was getting pretty tedious. So so I thought of it as tokenized in a box space, like tokenized in your laptop. Instead of being on the service, on a big service somewhere in the cloud, you can actually have it on your laptop for free. You don't have to pay any service fees, and you can experiment with it and do all the contracts you want to do. So, let's see here. So, yeah, so I have and all this time, I have a lot of different startup ideas that are based on tokenized, like what I would do if I had tokenized working, like all kinds of domain names I register for different ideas, tokenized apps. And I have the two of us graduated from, two Americans, myself and this classmate, Kendra Wood, and she has a new company, i.com. And she serves as kind of my business development resource, just like nChain's got a business development group. I have one too. And so what I'm trying to do and differentiate myself from the rest of the field in the hackathon was that I'm operating at the enterprise business level, not at that lower core level, like the message queuing level or something like that. Or I'm also operating at the financial instruments level, like, for example, shareholder structures, shareholder services platforms, not at the transaction level. So I'm a level up above most of the other people that work in the hackathon. And the Greenlight, my entry in Greenlight is really to encourage the BSV developers to start working at that higher level. I think it's more lucrative, and it's really it's something the public will identify with when you're working at that higher level. So, okay. Now the Greenlight, before I forget, it came originally out of the idea in the news that we have the virus, and they were talking about having a Greenlight, like a database where you could store information about a person's recovery. They had the virus, and they recovered, but they were in quarantine, and people don't, not sure if they can, return to work safely. So it'd be some kind of database to get some kind of card or something. It was discussed a lot in the news. I have all the news clippings about that, doing that. So I came up with the idea of putting on the blockchain, calling it Greenlight. Greenlight to return back to work, or, into the main population. And you'd have some kind of attestation from your doctor on the blockchain. We could refer to that you're good to go, back to work. But there's other ideas Greenlight can expand into, because I based it on the shareholder contract. But I'll show that in a moment. But the tokenized, one of the most interesting contract types that it has is a shareholder common shares contract type, because you can do a lot with that if you think about it. And so I'm trying to say, like, right now there's a security token offering is kind of the more legal version of the ICO. Like, the government has kind of blessed the STO. It's got more regulation in it than the ICO. It's improved ICO. So, but that's for like huge companies with $1 million to spend on the paperwork, for example. But I'm proposing we're using tokenized, because it can implement the shareholder agreements with a micro STO. And in other words, an STO aimed at even just one person. In other words, you can invest in one person's activity. It's not in a company's activities, in a single person's activities. So, for example, you could reduce employee turnover if you make an STO to invest in their idea that they came up with within the company as being an employee. And normally they might quit to pursue their idea in a startup. Instead, you give them shares in the STO on the BSV within tokenized, and every time their idea is used, they would get more shares. At the end of the year, they could maybe turn in those shares, cash them into the company, and pursue their own project internally for 2 weeks. Maybe even get paid for using their idea within the company, maybe in Bitcoin or in a token, probably a token, stable token. So you can even take that step further down to an individual in the population. Like, even some retired person at home is doing a great job raising grandchildren. Maybe someday that would become an astronaut or something like that. So you could make a contract for every person in the US, for example, 300 million smart contract instances, for example. That would create a lot of transactions, right? A lot of transaction fees. So every person could be given a contract, and people outside could invest in those people for the good work they're doing for the community, for example. Okay, so as I said, this is what Greenlight is. It's originally from the virus recovery attestation, but I've evolved it into a platform for writing killer apps. Okay. So right now I'm presenting a web app that runs on a laptop and includes a BSV full node, because Tokenized in the current version needs a full node to power it. And so, but the whole thing runs fine on a laptop. So I have a Intel i7 laptop and 1 terabyte drive and Windows 10, and the whole thing works fine on it. So you could be sitting at the beach, and you could be writing smart contracts. Okay, so I'm running the latest BSV 1.0.5, works fine. I'm using a virtual box to run the thing on Linux, because Tokenized runs only on a Linux, more or less. So I'm on Windows machine, but I'm running on Linux in a virtual box. So the great thing about my app is it starts the entire pipeline for Tokenized, including the Bitcoin daemon. It starts up BSV from scratch, does the whole thing, waits for it to be ready, and then spins up the different sub-services within Tokenized. So I say it's Python plus a Python Flask framework. Framework makes the REST API. And basically we're orchestrating the Tokenized features into an app. So it's a harmonious app. It starts up, it does some functions for you, a value, and then it stops. You can stop it. Just like a regular app, because otherwise Tokenized, you have to do everything by hand to use it the way it is now, if you're an individual person. I'm using a Wing debugger, okay. And so the thing is, I really went against the grain on this, because I'm using their debug build because they have a command line interface, and that's the only way I can really grab hold of it to orchestrate it with Python. So I'm using their debug build with the debug messages, which, it would never go to production or release build. But I'm saying, no, it's not a problem. We can retrofit all those features I use from debugger. We can retrofit those into the release build later on. So this is just proof of concept. And otherwise, we don't do this, we'll have nothing working. So the debug version has a rich logging output that is perfect, I found out, for driving the events that I need to look for to orchestrate the different parts of Tokenized into a uniform app from step to step to step. So I also came up with a mobile app, at least design and a prototype, so I can have a wallet for the consumer, ultimately, a Tokenized wallet. So just quickly, here's how, this just shows you incredible intellectual property that company Tokenized has. And they have all these smart contract types covering almost the whole spectrum of business. They're ready, they're pre-packaged, unlike Ethereum, Solidity, which is like a free-form smart contract language. They already have them pre-programmed, so they're just components that you can string together. All these different you can also write your own if you dive down it. You could write a custom one, but they've tried to cover most of the ones you would need for serious business. So it's opposite of Ethereum, of Solidity, opposite approach. And it's layer 2. It's not running on chain. It's running in Go language, and a separate computer that then has to synchronize to the BSV blockchain to pass results back and forth, to pass the smart contract information back and forth to the chain and to the off layer 2 processors. Okay. Let's see here. So it said I leverage their code in a way not intended by them, but it's always a good thing when you're trying to innovate, right? So it's not a problem ongoing. So I'm also leveraging 3D. A lot of the game platforms can be used for business now, so that's what I did. So I proposed the wallet will be actually on a 3D platform, and I can show you some snapshots of that. And I say again, the benefits of Tokenized is the business transactions are kind of a win-win for everybody, because it makes sure that transactions are legally correctly formulated and they're fair, and no information is lost, and no opportunity to make money is wasted. The business is fully accountable. And so the tokens are a key concept, and anything of value can be captured as a token on Tokenized. And that's there's a lot of articles recently in the news, tech news, about the promise of tokens. It's really the up and coming thing. So I think we're running a tidal wave actually working with tokens. Again, I'm working out with the Greenlight. If we do that virus version, that would be like micro investing for social benefit. So we've got two models here, like I explained. And okay, keep going here. So yeah, just going back about how it came about. There's the document that Brendan wrote. It's online. So okay, so the thing was, I decided to use a REST API. It's a standard web API that the most number of users would be able to access it, and developers. And so the goal in the hackathon was to get the REST API working, and also make a prototype of the mobile app, or at least a design for it. And so before the hackathon, I had some work done, but it was just pieces. There was no concept of REST API. I have no clue how to do a REST API before I started tokenized before I started the hackathon. I had to think about it and research it. And you know, I just had one block of code when I started the hackathon. I had to break it up into the REST API methods. And I had to think about what would that be, breaking it up. Like, I had no clue. How would I take my program, break it up? So, and then I stopped for about 2 weeks to do the mobile app design and research. So I'll go through quick here. Here's quickly what I have so far, these REST API methods. Yeah, they have a concept of wallets, because, you know, if you do different operations to create a smart contract, it costs money on the blockchain. So you have to have a wallet, you have to fund it with some money to pay a few pennies here and there when you're doing smart contract operations and tokenize. So there's some wallet methods to set up a wallet and fund it. And then there's the beautiful one, the second one, activate the shareholder common API. That starts up the whole thing from scratch. Like I said, starts up the blockchain itself, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin D, and then all the services of token. It starts the whole thing up, and it's waiting for a request after that, waiting for a REST API request from HTTP to execute. So then you can create a smart contract, you can create a shareholder, or you can get the shareholder existing information. You can post an asset, like connect an asset like a share or a block of shares, 1,000 shares. You can create 1,000 shares in that contract, smart contract. And then you can deploy some shares. The first one I have is an airdrop, where you just give some shares to an unsuspecting person who's got a Bitcoin address. You can just assign that guy shares whether he wants them or not. So that's an airdrop, I think. So that's a way to bootstrap having shares. Even with the virus scenario I mentioned, you'd probably start off by giving them to maybe the doctor, for example. Give airdropping to the doctor is going to test for the patient's recovery. Okay, so the demo I have a demo in another window here. I don't know if we'll have time for it, but it's just running the Python in a debugger window. But it would demo the airdrop. And I said, probably you do an atomic swap. They support atomic swaps, very sophisticated ones in Tokenize. It's amazing, it's a fantastic, powerful feature. So you'd probably give some tokens to the doctor, sponsor, and then you'd give some other tokens to the recovering patient. And then when the doctor decides to sponsor the patient for sure, then he would swap his tokens for their tokens. Then the patient would have the serious tokens that can be used to attest that he's recovered, he or she's recovered. That's just kind of the one scenario for that. Yeah, if I did the live demo, you could see the actions in the logs. So, and they have actions and assets is their main concept in tokenized. And so A is like a action for asset. I think it's an asset action. And then when you create one on chain, it comes back with an A2, kind of like a confirmation. So it just shows I ran it and I capture all the logging information. So the A1 asset, I deployed some shares or I guess action, actually, actions and assets. So, and then it did come back, it confirmed it with the A2 message. And then on what's on chain, you can look at these values and ready to go. What's on chain, you can see the details of it. So, and here's, for example, what's on chain, getting the response from a A2 action response. And so it's all there. And let's see here. I tracked all this stuff down. And so you have to get used to that. And I put this in code. So what's on chain has an API, just like I'm writing an API. They have an API of you can call from Python. So I do use that within my Python to get some information and trace some of these links of the A1 to the A2, because it's pretty nasty to do it through the visually. So I actually have some of that working. I leverage that what's on chain API. And so here you see it made, when it made this A2 action, it records that. And if you look in the ASCII window tab here, you'll see the little A2. The rest of it's not decoded properly because they haven't caught up yet with tokenized proprietary format. They have to put that into what's on chain with it. It's coming, but they don't have it yet. But at least the A2 survives. You can see it in plain sight here. So you know you've got the right transaction as the A2 for some shares you've deployed. Okay, so quickly, the roadmap would be, I did register some domains. I've got COVID-19 Greenlight.org. It has, to be credible, it has to be nonprofit, I think, right? So it got nonprofit org for that. But I have another company I tend to spin up, bitforce.us, which would be for profit, but it would do the programming on behalf of the .org. That's my plan. And let's see here, what else here? Just explain a little about how it works. I think I might register in Wyoming because they have favorable crypto laws. Seems a smart thing to do. I'll probably move to testnet. I'm on mainnet now because it was fun to be on mainnet for my small tests originally. So, but I'll probably move to testnet for doing large number of small contract tests, smart contract tests. 3D wallet, I got to do. I'm going to move it to the App Engine. The code's in Golang right now, and I'm going to move that to the Google App Engine serverless cloud platform. That's exactly what we need to do. Nobody seems to have done it, but that's a fabulous platform. It's also mostly free. They have high daily limits, and you could, if you just stay under the limit, very generous daily usage limits. So you could go for years doing all your demos and all that, not pay a penny. It's a kind of a secret that people don't realize compared to AWS, where you have to spend money. Same with Azure, you have to spend money even for a demo. So I got to, and all those things you saw, those different contract types, and I have to implement a lot more of those. Probably try to use payment channels. And so here's some snapshots of the mobile wallet that I'm proposing. See, there's actually a green light. So this is 3D. You can walk through this, in other words, and walk up to like the light switch and turn on the green light. And it would fire up that engine. And the thing is, you've got these 3D objects that can have a UI like widgets pasted right onto the face of the 3D objects. You see, as I move through I walk through the view, this initial panel here is now become rotated. You know, you've got perspective. So that, and the UI flows with it, transforms along on the face of that panel. It transforms along with it. That's a new feature. Few people know about it. It's from Nuisa's company in Spain, Madrid, Spain. I've been following them for a couple of years. So I've got their toolkit, and so another one they have happens to fit with blockchain. Here we are. You can have a block in a blockchain with pasted the UI right onto it. So for tokenized, you could have a custom menu for it. If you have a block and a blockchain happens to have, maybe not, but it happens to have some tokenized transactions in it, it would automatically pop up a custom UI that would let you access that tokenized transaction information that's within that particular blockchain block on BSV, for example. So you could do some really cool stuff by having these 3D UIs pasted onto, following along with the surfaces of these objects in 3D. That's called a first-person scene controller, to be able to walk through the scene. Okay, so that's my conclusion is, yeah, I wouldn't have even looked at tokenized if it wasn't for the fact that you've got that BSV core feature of the cryptographically secured ledger. And to say, I give my thanks to Dr. Ray, I call it the invention of the century, I would say. So that's what I have. Any questions?
Hi there, David.
Did it come through?
Yeah. No, we got the whole presentation. Yeah. No. So thanks for that. It's a really interesting and take, I think, on the hackathon. It definitely addresses the theme of the hackathon, but it does so in a unique way. I think you're actually right in saying that you've kind of stepped up a level from the minute detail of Bitcoin to more of a kind of an integration level. You were notable in the hackathon because the name was, I think, D. Lipker was well known amongst nChain staff, the people who were providing some of the support for the hackathon, because you asked a lot of questions, and some of them, to be honest, were hard questions, and we had to go and have some internal conversations before we worked out the answers that we could give you. You've brought a really kind of unique and new perspective to a hackathon that we haven't seen before. But I'm really interested, because of the sheer number of questions that we went through in that process, to hear about like what you actually learned through the process of the hackathon. Like, where did you actually start in terms of your BSV knowledge? Where did you get to by the end of the hackathon? And you know,
that was a dream come true, because I couldn't find a BSV forum that could answer questions quickly. I got tokenized, I could get answers. So I indirectly got answers about BSV by sneaking in questions to tokenize about BSV, not just tokenize. That's a kind of a trick. So, so the payment channel. So I had these outstanding questions for several years in my mind that piled up, because I took the course, master's degree, cryptocurrency, deep dive into the whole thing. And so I every day, I subscribe to the block, for example, the block. And also, of course, going CoinGeek, I watched every video from early on, and I took detailed notes. I have mega detailed notes of every minute thing you've ever presented over the last couple of years. I just deep dive, and I'm hooked on it. I'm hooked on BSV. So because of that, I accumulated these questions. I tracked them in my notes. So I was able to go back through my questions, bring them all together. And of course, that payment channel was the biggest question of all. I mean, so I was so happy to be able to at least get some light shed on the payment channel. And I kept digging on that one, because I think I want to use that. I mean, to me, that's the pipeline out of BSV into the external world, which those people say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. No, you use a payment channel and let it communicate with any program you want, COBOL program, anything, and have it come back the answer in the op return or something, or in a push date, I think it is. And you've talked to the outside world from the on-chain. I mean, that's the whole future. So, and I think I would put my logging, what I'm saying when I go back and say, well, tokenize, well, you want me using, you don't want me using your logging debug messages, obviously. So we have to convert them maybe to payment channel messages, perhaps in some format, for example. Or, so that's the kind of thing, that and whatever other things I asked. Every one of them was something that, I just didn't understand, bothered me for months or years about BSV, how it works. So it was fabulous. There's a main thing, it was almost the reason Dexter, right, to be on the hackathon was to help you guys answer these dirty questions that who don't want to answer that one.
Speaking of questions, Steve, I think there's a couple for David from the audience.
Okay.
Okay, so I have one. I'm so sorry. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name. I know who you are because I've spoken to you at a couple of CoinGeek conferences, but I can't remember how to pronounce the name. Starts with an O. Who's asking, are you available for partnerships? He's laughing at me now.
Yeah, so that's why I went
for partnerships.
New York, it's partnership city, so yes. Yeah, I want to make the world better and expand the technology any way that's appropriate. Obviously, we're at the very beginning, and the partnerships are needed. It's like pair programming almost. We need that. So sure, exciting.
Well, that's Olu for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Woohoo.
We'll find a way to put you in touch after
Okay.
this. David, do you have a website or a Twitter handle or email address or anywhere where people can contact you if they?
Oh, I gave my personal one on my slides, so it's just dlipka@gmail.com. The first letter D, David, dlipka@gmail.com. It's the easiest because I look all the
It's
time.
DLYPKA@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a company and all that because then I have to sometimes look at that company and another company, email goes nuts. I just have one email for right now.
Yeah.
It's quicker.
I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a question from Zhao Lu, the author of Script. I don't know if we can pop that one up on the screen, or maybe I can scroll it down. In terms of smart contracts, how do you compare between solutions with templates like tokenized and ones with full complexity like Script?
Looking for the intellectual property. And I mean, I think tokenized answered that question as well, the comparison to Script. And whether they would actually use Script at some point, and replace some of their low-level code with Script and maybe reduce their code base. But it's not a matter of having just a powerful language or platform. They have already stuffed it with this. I said this IP. They've already packaged up all the knowledge of that I guess that the principals of that company have: legal knowledge, contract law knowledge globally, and all these deals are doing with banks. Are doing deals with the EU to have their tokens accepted, by the government agencies. So it's that I'm looking. I mean, again, it's an upper level. I want to work at the upper level. That's the level that will get the acceptance and get your large transaction volume. The killer app. So Script would be something.
I wanted to zero in on this point because you did make it in your presentation, and that is really the differentiator, I think, between your entry into this hackathon and probably almost every other entry. And it's probably a differentiator between your approach to BSV in general and a lot of the projects. I won't say all, but a lot of the projects that we see in BSV. You're trying to step it up a level and not deal with BSV at the kind of core technical level. You're trying to deal with it more at an integration level, in a way that you package it and present it to business. Is that right?
Well, but the big enchilada is that IP, the intellectual property. That's the value that they've listed out all those smart contract types that can drive a whole. It's a Wall Street in the box. It's not just tokenized in the box. It's a Wall Street in the box. In fact, that's the term I used originally before, like 2 or 3 years ago. I was talking about having a Wall Street in a box when I first took the course, because I thought, basically, I used to go around and say you can print your own money. It's a license. Tokens, you basically have a license to print your own money. That's what they did with ICOs, basically. They just printed, I say printing, I'm virtually printing tokens, and really right off the bat, cash them in on the exchange. So, you're almost like, in TV shows, movies, they used to joke about you have license to print your own money. It's some good idea. So I look at the IP, that's the value of all those contract types they've got for every kind of business you can think of, business operation. That's the way so we're just trying to package those and corral those into killer apps and drive business and public good. Like I said, I want to have those personal contracts for every single person. That's what I like. That'd be my dream, is every person would have their own smart contract, share driven, and people would invest in people that they find interesting.
So you see yourself then as an integrating layer that connects a second layer technology like tokenized to the end user, the consumer.
Well, I have the app. I have the 3D app, so it'll be it'll be a consumer app, but not just the integration level.
Yeah.
But the thing is, certainly I had to do the integration level because they didn't have it. And my thing is just a roadmap for how tokenized could retrofit functionally what I did, but not how I did it using the debug messages. Don't want to do that. It's a roadmap for how we would get this orchestrated. So I did the orchestration of necessity because I didn't have anything. I was sitting there. I could read about it, but I couldn't use it. So just selfish reasons. I mean, I I couldn't use token. It's fun. To me, it was fun because I wanted to write all the smart contract types. They had the movie theater scenario. They have all these scenarios using them in their documentation. I wanted to run some of those. Run the movie theory.
That's what Bitcoin's all about, isn't it? It's about getting useful stuff done for selfish reasons that just happens to benefit other people. You're obviously very, very focused on tokenized. Are you in touch with James Belden?
Yes, yeah, on the forum, I kind of overloaded maybe the hackathon forum. If you check on tokenized forum, guess what you're going to see? Even more delifted on that one. So
Hey,
I
think we need to wrap up soon. The time is coming up in just a couple of minutes. So let's thank David Lipka for his submission of Greenlight and wish him lots of luck with bringing Wall Street in a box to the world. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
So with that, let me end this virtual meetup with just a final preview for what's going to happen at CoinGeek Live next week. At the beginning of the virtual meetup, I gave you some insight on what's going to happen on day 2. Day 3 is going to be equally packed with content. We're going to be leading off with a string of sessions related to very related industries. Esports, you'll get an update on Chronoverse and CryptoFights, as well as hear from some other companies. Cashless casinos, you'll hear from BitBoss, Matt Dixon, and a variety of other companies tackling the need to get casinos cashless, particularly to meet the concerns of the COVID-19 pandemic, but to move the entire industry forward. You'll hear about iGaming and a new company that is going to be building in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem. There will be sessions about many of the business services and needs related to Bitcoin and blockchain generally, about intellectual property, blockchain intelligence, and even KYC, KYB, know your business. And you'll hear from a RegTech business about what it's going to be doing on this blockchain. And there will be panels about venture investments, a very interesting session about digitizing the physical world on the blockchain. And then we'll end the entire conference with one of the favorite people we've seen now in the Bitcoin SV world, George Gilder, famed economist and best-selling author of The Scandal of Money, Life After Google, and many other books. He's coming up to New York to join us in our studio, as well as end the conference with a fireside chat with Dr. Craig Wright, who'll be appearing from London. So there's a lot happening. We hope you'll all join us next week. Shadders will be there, right, Shadders?
I will.
I will, and he'll look extra fine and dapper from London. I'll miss him here in New York, but register if you haven't already at CoinGeekConference.com, because I hear our conference is certainly the talk of Twitter these days. So we'll see you next week at CoinGeek Live. I can't wait to welcome all of you from around the world from here in New York City. Thanks and good night.